What's on your minds? Shy. There's one over here.
My name is George Young.
Say your first name again.
My name is George Young.
George?
Actually, I'm not working. I filed for patents in 1999 2000, but U.S. patents still hold my patents. So basically, I cannot do anything. And much worse, I got 4 big lawsuits in less than 11 years. So far, I'm a loser. My question is
Did
about...
you say a lawsuit?
I got 4 lawsuits. So far, I'm a loser. So I couldn't do anything. But the consequence is, if I cannot do anything, I cannot move forward.
Yes.
Nobody can either. No winner. No winner. Because everybody is very concerned about the current global economic crisis. This is really global economic crisis. This global economic crisis is caused by U.S. economic crisis. U.S. economic crisis is caused by financial crisis. Financial crisis is caused by mortgage crisis. Mortgage crisis is caused by we have more than 20 million illegal immigrants, because these low-paid workers couldn't pay the mortgage. So for my 4 lawsuits, I figured the 2 big issues. One is the immigration issue, and the U.S. court totally lost the function to enforce immigration law. Another one is the tax law. For example, like in United States, more than 50% public companies are resident that are aware. Most of them cheat on state tax and local tax, even state tax. So my question is, your opinion, if we want to make an economic recovery or whatever, without resolve these 2 big issues, can we make any movement?
Can we make any movement on
achievement?
Well, that is. I guess I would have to accept. First of all, thank you for your question and your comment. I'm not sure I accept all of the premise that you offer for why we are in the pickle we're in. You know that phrase, the pickle we're in, the state we're in, the troubles we're in right now. For me, it's hard, given what I see in Massachusetts and around the country, to reduce it quite as neatly as you do, respectfully, to immigration and illegal immigration. But if the question is, what is the fix for the economic crisis, I don't think there is a the fix. I do think that there are, it is more than a little puzzling. No, not puzzling is not the right word. It's more than a little frustrating that as much money as we have put into the financial services industry and the financial industry generally has yielded as little loosening of credit. And the access to credit is a serious problem for businesses and consumers alike. But there is another issue as well, which I think is more sort of in the culture of business, and frankly, I see it a lot in government too, and that is this enormous pressure, and I saw it when I was in private industry at Coke and Texaco, to manage for the next quarter and to get the short-term results, sometimes sacrificing the long-term interests of the enterprise. And I see this in government as well, because I think we have increasingly been governing for the next election cycle. Sometimes I said about my predecessor in the governor's office, he would govern for the next news cycle, and not necessarily in ways that served our long-term interests as a community if there wasn't some short-term political gain. I think all of us are going to have to start looking ahead and acting on what we see ahead, which is back to the central point I was trying to make here. But due respect to your question, I think I differ a little bit with the premise. Yeah.
So, hi, my name's Omar, and I have a question.
Say your first name again.
Omar.
Omar?
So with your valuable insight and experience in Massachusetts, when Massachusetts went through some hard times, especially when DEC used to be a leading company and then had a problem.
Yeah.
If you Arnie's not here, so when California goes back east and says we need a bailout pretty soon because we're running out of money, if President Obama calls you, what would you advise him to say to California?
Yeah, Omar. Next question. No, look. First of all, I support the stimulus efforts in the Congress right now and have been working very closely with the Congress and the administration. I think most governors do, by the way, but not about a bailout. It's really about what is stimulative and what avoids counter-stimulative forces. Our view has been, most governors' view, has been that the package ought to have at least three kinds of things in it. One is direct, stimulative, job-creating investment, particularly in infrastructure, broadly defined. And that's for two reasons. One, our infrastructure is falling apart in this country. Roads, bridges, yes, but also broadband expansion, also the whole movement toward health IT and so on. Broadly defined infrastructure is enormously important. And by the way, it is public infrastructure, so it's not wrong for government to spend on those sorts of things. We've been starving our infrastructure all over the country for a long time. So that is at the top. And by the way, from everything I have seen of the opinions of economists across the political spectrum, infrastructure spending is at the top of the list of stimulative spending. That's first. Second is counter-cyclical support, meaning there are a host of programs, food stamps, Medicaid support for health care and so forth. There are a couple of key examples where the demand goes up because the economy is crummy, but the ability of states to meet that demand is compromised because the economy is crummy. And so some help there, which only the federal government can supply, or frankly we could supply, I suppose, at the state level by raising everybody's taxes. Doesn't quite sink. I saw your eyebrows go up when I said that. But some federal support there, I think, is helpful. And in the absence of that, by the way, then states become huge. States are laying off people like nobody's business, which has its own drag on the stimulative effect you're trying to do in that first bucket. And then a third that some of us have been urging, and the House has responded, we were talking about this beforehand, Sean and others, is some support for education, pre-K through higher ed. Not to expand programs, but so that we don't lose ground during the recession. Because you're in second grade, you don't sit out second grade until the recession's over. You get one chance at second grade. And we need to be this is back to a point I was making earlier about how we think about investment from a long-term point of view. The best investment for the long term for this country in the economy we are and are becoming is in education. So how do we get some help so we don't lose ground? We've been on this 15-year journey in Massachusetts. We don't want to break our momentum, even if we can't get to the next level as fast as we'd like. There's a fourth component, which is the tax package, and I'm not going to express an opinion on that. I think I get the politics of it, but those 3 points, those 3 buckets or categories, if you will, I think there is wide consensus among governors. Now, there are some governors who are willing to say that publicly, and there are others who are not. And that's where politics comes in. And I'll just leave it at that. Who's got? Yes? Okay.
Tony Mazzapelli. The population of Massachusetts is about the same as the San Francisco Bay Area, but here in the Bay Area we have 3 very large Department of Energy labs. 2 of them have 8,000 workers doing very big science, including top IT, top bioscience. And this influences a lot of the venture capital, a lot of the research that goes in companies like Hewlett-Packard and the universities. Do you think places like Massachusetts should shoot for getting more labs, big labs like this, or do you think the universities and small players should go for the research?
Well, I think first of all we get a disproportionate share of a bunch of things you care about. Like we get 1 out of every 4 NIH dollars right now. How about that? And we have a whole host of research laboratories. Actually, many of them closely connected to the defense industry. And that has been an economic source for us. We have a new wind blade test facility, one of 2 that the DOE recently awarded that's going up in Charlestown. I think the other one in Texas, Pat? It's in Texas, right, in Corpus Christi. And we'd like more. Obviously, we got to get in there and ask for it, because it's not going to come just because, we're, as the kids say, all that. But also, I think, these things are important in terms of their local economic impact and the vibrancy of the community of thought around them, just as here in the Bay Area. But we have to encourage, and I say this understanding my primary role as governor, we have to encourage a lot more collaboration across a whole lot of lines, including state lines, than we do even now. And I think a good deal of it happens already, but we're going to have to do more of this. And I think there's some opportunities, and there have been some of those opportunities exploited as between Massachusetts and California, particularly the Bay Area. Do you want me to call on people, or do you want to?
Whatever you want to do.
So yes, right here.
Thank you, Governor Patrick.
Sure.
Junius Ho, I currently work at Palm, MIT alum. So you mentioned that currently with the uncertain economy and positions like that it's very important to be forward-thinking and to innovate and to be proactive. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. If you look at the history of the Valley around the burst of the bubble, the companies that invested the most in people are the most successful now today.
There's a but coming, though. Yeah. I can feel it.
Well,
yes.
To this end, you also mentioned the tremendous wealth of talent in all the universities and research institutions in Massachusetts. And although we all sit here today and Silicon Valley is the biggest sort of poacher of this talent, how do you and your administration plan to sort of keep a lot of these great minds in state and help further the causes that you're working with?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, I want to be absolutely clear. You're really good in Silicon Valley, but we have a lot of that talent at home too, and we hold on to it. There are things we can't compete with, like January and February. That's a problem, right? But okay, so let's set that aside. There are things that we can do and are trying to do, and by the way, they are not all about government. They are mostly not about government, but I have an opportunity to call attention to them and sort of use my convener role as governor. So, for example, in the life sciences, there is a very clear sort of personality that cluster has. They're close to each other. They talk to each other all the time. They have fora and trade associations, if you will, that gather them together a lot. And we just got it to the next level by calling a lot of attention to it and rallying around a rather modest, actually. I mean, the $1 billion initiative is a third of what you did here in California. But frankly, we learned from the experience in California to do some things differently and I think better, and that has helped. So it's got to kind of buzz around it. I mean, some of it's marketing, some of it's substance, but some of it is also marketing. The clean tech sector is another. You've got a 15-year lead in terms of the image of California as being forward-leaning around clean tech. But in fact, our legislative framework is a whole lot better than yours. And no. Look, all I'm talking about is who's setting the bar where, right? We learned from California and from other jurisdictions, and frankly from Europe as well, and moved that bar. Now somebody else, frankly, the federal government ought to step up and move that bar further. But that's where we are right now, and we have been trying to organize our burgeoning clean tech sector and create some collaboration and some understanding of who is doing what, because it's a multifaceted sector, and some buzz around that. IT is, we have had a depth in IT for a long, long time, but a whole lot of people still think it's Route 128. It's not. I mean, did you know that we were one of the, second or third hubs for video gaming in the country? You knew that. That's because you're cool. Okay. Maybe if... Okay, all right. I was going to say, you wouldn't know that if you're over 50. Let me put it that way. But it's, but here's the thing. We've got nearly 80 developers. We don't have a major publisher. And so they're here. Or out this way. Microsoft I saw yesterday. So boy, the week is a blur. Right. Yesterday, and I'm going to see Electronic Arts Friday, right? And so we'd like to have. I'm not saying you got to leave California, but a lot of the industry has a presence on both. And for those parts of the industry, and I don't mean just gaming, but the IT industry generally, we want you to think about having your East Coast presence in Massachusetts. So that some of it is marketing. Some of it is very practical. Affordable housing is a huge issue. And there are opportunities in this recession, frankly, to recalibrate there. And we have looked at some strategies and are working on some strategies to try to do this around workforce housing. There's some other things that are, again, not directly about the industry or an industry, but are important to the workforce. The creative economy, the cultural offerings, important economically, enormously important to the to this hip population we're trying to retain. And frankly, what was the Staying at MA program that they were talking about at the VC meeting the other day? We don't ask young people to stay in Massachusetts after they finish school. We don't do that. We don't. I'm from the Midwest. If you're new in the Midwest, you move into a neighborhood. I grew up in Chicago. Everybody brings a pie. Sometimes in the East, if you're new, you're the one expected to bring the pie. Some of you from the East understand what I'm talking about? Okay, so we have to understand that extending our hand and showing welcome is actually economically important. As well as and serves our long-term interests. You want me to do this? Okay, let me do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are you going to remember your numbers? 3. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right? You have to remember your numbers. Okay, go ahead.
Andres Pelionis from Hodjan Tech.
Nice to see you.
Governor Patrick, congratulations. You are blessed with a fantastic mother. That saying about the poor being different from the broken is absolutely profound. Now, there's also another saying, ain't fix it if it's not broken. So maybe we should take a look what is not broken about the economy. And just last week, in Churchill Club, we had a genome-based economy proposal because genomics is not broken at all. In fact, it's rising on both sides both in California and also in Massachusetts.
That's right.
And when I saw you together with Mr. and Mrs. in the Broad Institute, when you put together Harvard University with MIT, I think we can do it, because here we have HP, an existing hybrid computer that is just announced, which is poised for genome computation. And of course, in a genome-based economy, those in the Broad Institute and other institutions like University of Massachusetts, they are very heavily working on genomics. So we are all in one economy, east side or west side, and I think with your talent, we can really put the two sides together.
Well, thank you. That's a great comment. Did you say you work for HP? Did you say you work for HP? Did I? No, because it sounded like an HP commercial there for a second. But just a part of it. But no, you're right. Not everything is wrong with his. I mean, that's what I meant when I said we have, in Massachusetts certainly, and I think in the country generally, we have some, certainly in Massachusetts, good economic bones. I think for us in particular in Massachusetts, and it may also be true of Northern California, but I don't pretend to be as familiar with all the conditions, a knowledge-based economy is our future. And it doesn't mean that, that it's the same solution everywhere in the country. It's a big country. We have agriculture, for example, in our economy at home in Massachusetts, but not a very big part of the economy. Our edge is going to be what's new. It's going to be ideas. It's going to be innovation. And that has some implications, my point, about what kinds of things we call attention to today and invest in. A genome-based economy, for example, is a wonderful idea as long as you continue to cultivate the talent necessary to advance that industry. And that, to me, has huge implications for education, including public investment in education. Number two. You want to talk into my tie? I can bring this.
Thank you very much. First off, Governor, as a Boston native, welcome to Red Sox Nation West.
There you
it's
go.
Good to have you here.
That's what I'm talking about.
They get bigger crowds when they play out here than they do in Fenway Park. My name's Andrew Duncan. I'm with Scale and Systems here in Palo Alto. My question is specific. Applied technology is where a lot of technology is now being shipping, and I think that will continue to advance with the downturn in the economy. And one of the areas for Boston is obviously medicine along with technology. You talk about innovation a lot, very important word. Tom Daschle in his book, there's really no mention of innovation. There's a lot of concerns about Cutler and others going into the administration and taking over the FDA and whatnot. So what is your view about that? Because medical industry is one of the areas in technologies that our country is really great at, and we have a leadership position. So what is your view on where that goes? And my other question associated with that, what's your position on tort reform?
Okay. What's yours? What's your position on tort reform?
I think it's from Harvard Law School. I think it's really a big problem. It's a huge toll booth in court.
Okay.
I offer full disclosure. I'm also a Boston Democrat, so I'm not trying to.
No, you're all right. You're all right. You can ask me anything you want. I don't have to answer it, but you can answer it if you want. On the first question, Andrew, I think it sounded like you were asking me to offer an opinion about the appointees or potential appointees in some of these key positions. I'm not going to go there, but let me talk around it, because if the question is in its nature, how do we assure that regulatory and oversight institutions also appreciate the importance to our economic future of innovation? I'm there, and by the way, so is the president. I'm very convinced of that. Now, any given applicant is going to complain that it does or doesn't go fast enough. I mean, I'm say for example, I am very personally committed to growing this clean tech sector and alternative energy field in Massachusetts. But it doesn't mean I'm going to say you can cite whatever you want wherever you want. We're still going to have to balance interest. just have to be mindful of what it is we are trying to accomplish. This is back to the point about thinking long term. And I don't think it means that we say nothing else matters except that long-term vision. You still have to strike a balance in competing interests, especially in my line of work, as a practical matter as well as I think just good policy. On the second question about tort reform, most people seem, I find people mean a whole bunch of things by tort reform. If the question is about, well, forget about interpreting the question. Let me tell you what I think. What I think is that we ought to have as simple and direct ways and means for people to resolve disputes. I don't think that some of the proposals about how to do that are particularly constructive because they rub up against the right that people have or wish they have to have a way to resolve their disputes and to be compensated for real wrongs. But there are some experiments out there around alternative dispute resolution and so forth, and specialized courts, courts that are dedicated to a particular field and so on, which are working pretty well. And I do think we should be moving in that direction. Okay.